Welcome, hackers. In a previous video, we discussed the concept of the five-room dungeon. I'll have a link to that video in the description below. Today, we're going to expand on the five-room dungeon by creating two five-room dungeons and smashing them together. Each of the two five-room dungeons will have different factions in them, and these two factions will not only interact with the players, but also be in conflict with each other. So I give to you the Whispering Caverns. Each of the five-room dungeons run pretty much parallel to each other, and the party will be able to move back and forth between them as they desire. The main benefit of smashing together two five-room dungeons is that the dungeon master can use the template for the five-room dungeon, making dungeon creation easier, but it becomes a longer adventure for the players. On one side, we have the Silent Fang Gang, a reclusive tribe of goblins who revere a slumbering dragon as a god. They have developed a rudimentary form of telepathic communication through exposure to myconid spores. Their primary goal is to keep the dragon undisturbed. In this mission, the goblins snuff out any and all sound and are more than happy to simply drive off intruders if they're willing to leave. On the other side, the Verdant Network is a sentient colony of myconid fungi, seeking to expand its territory and consume the dragon's magical energy. They use spores to influence the cavern's environments and manipulate the creatures. They think the goblins are a problem and want to force them away. Now that we know the two factions, let's take a look at the layout of the dungeon. Both factions have their own entrances, but we're going to look at the goblin side first. Because the goblins can communicate telepathically, the guards don't have to even make themselves known to raise the alarm. If they choose to reveal themselves, it may be in the form of an ambush after the parties enter a later room. They may even send silent telepathic messages to warn the other goblins that the players have arrived. Room 2 connects to the Myconid lair, and there are several guards here. They are most likely to the north, protecting from the Myconid incursions. There are also other goblins here harvesting fungus for food. If they are warned about the approach of the party, the farmers may be gone or may be prepared to attack as well. Next is a precarious fungal bridge. This bridge is dangerous to cross for creatures of medium size or larger, but is fine for the goblins that live in the area, as they are smaller. The players will find risks of falling and potentially even hit and run tactics from the goblins here. Room 4 is a battle with the remaining goblins and the leader of the goblins. Beyond this is the dragon's lair. There is a rough scaffold built for the goblins to view the dragon. Treasure is hidden here in the form of offerings from the goblin tribe to the sleeping dragon. On to the Myconid area. The entrance to the Myconid area is a little more hidden, but can be deduced thanks to a cloud of spores that float in the air. Inside the Myconid entrance, there are several guards hidden among the normal mushrooms and fungus in the cavern. The next room doesn't have any myconids in it, but there are two exits. One leads to the goblin section of the dungeon, and the other leads deeper into the myconids' territory. But the hallway to the myconids' next room is closed off by fungal growths. This puzzle is variable and depends on the player's use of light. If the entire party has dark vision, and they have no light source, then the solution is to present light to the fungus and it will shrink back, allowing the party to pass. If the party needs to use light for some reason, then extinguishing that light and covering the fungus in darkness will cause the fungus to shrink back. Whichever way you play this, it will open up the passage to the next room for the players. In room 3 of the Myconids area is guarded by an ooze that is mutated due to the spores of the myconids and will attack anyone that isn't a fungus person. Room 4 is a giant room that looks more like a cathedral than a cavern, except that all the structures are made out of mushrooms and other fungus. This is where the bulk of the mushroom people are. There's a small tunnel that leads to the goblin area that the goblins are unaware of, but the myconids use for spying. Finally, the myconid core chamber. In this room is a large fungal growth with strands of fungal filament running along the ground and into the walls. One of the fingers of fungus extends through the wall to the dragon's room, and this is how the fungal core is absorbing the magical energy from the dragon. There are a few different ways that this dungeon can be completed. The party could ally with the goblins by convincing them of their peaceful intentions. This would allow the players to more easily defeat the Myconids and eventually destroy the Myconid core. This will lead to the dragon eventually waking up, and when it awakes, several other things might happen. The dragon might be disoriented and flee the area after its long slumber. The dragon might stay and accept the worship of the goblins and make this its home. If the adventurers are still there when it awakes, then it might attack the party. If you want this to be a possibility, make sure the dragon is of an appropriate challenge rating for the party. The second possibility is to work with the Myconids. In this scenario, the party helps them defeat or drive away the goblins. This will ensure that the dragon remains asleep and not a threat to the surrounding villages. But what might happen as the Myconids continue to grow in power from the dragon's magical energy? That is yet to be determined and is a problem for another day. The party might also simply oppose both factions. This would be a pretty straightforward murder hobo, kill them all dungeon. In this case, as with the goblin scenario, the dragon will eventually wake up.
How do we get the players into the dungeon?
Well, Digit, here are some potential plot hooks, but feel free to use your own imagination. The players might simply find the opening while exploring the woods. They might hear rumors of a slumbering dragon in the forest nearby and want to check it out for possible treasure. It is possible that they find a goblin in the woods and it asks for their help. I think for my campaign, I'm going to have the party camp overnight in the woods and awake several days later with all their camp supplies missing. They will still have their adventuring equipment since the goblins that took the stuff didn't want to risk getting too close to the actual sleeping players. Now they can either discover the location from tracking the goblins or from investigating why they slept for several days. Using the 5 room dungeon model is a good way to create a meaningful adventure that is very interesting and not just a hack and slash. By smashing together 2 5 room dungeons, we get the benefits of the 5 room dungeon model, but gain an additional benefit of having a larger dungeon. We also get to explore how having multiple factions in the same dungeon can give you a dungeon that feels more alive and less static than your standard dungeon. This dungeon is available in my Patreon. I've linked it below, along with a few images and a couple of battle maps that can be used with the adventure. Like and subscribe for more Dungeons and Dragons videos, and until the next video, keep on hacking the dungeon.